We're here today with Dr. DarylOsbahr, who is the Chief of Sports Medicine at Orlando Health.
And a lot of people have a hard time defining what sports medicine actually is. And sports medicine is really a field that's evolved over time. It used to be really our most elite athletes that used to be defined by true sports medicine, the care for those elite athletes. Now it's also our weekend warriors, the dads and moms that want to go out there and play on the field and be competitive, and they might be competitive with themselves or other athletes as well. So sports medicine, how do we take care of those people, prevent injuries, and then when they have an injury, get them back to the activities they love as quickly as possible.
So you mentioned dads and weekend warriors. I'm a dad and I'm a weekend warrior.
Yeah.
I'll go crazy on the weekends working out.
Absolutely.
Is that a bad thing for me?
Well, I think everything's about the load that you put on the body and how quickly you do it. You need to get your body kind of accustomed or acclimated to the activities that you're doing. So the more you do, the quicker you do it, and the more often you do it, the more you can be prone to overuse as well as acute injuries, just because your body isn't ready to handle that load. So what we often see is the dad that goes out with a friend, and then the friend is somebody who works out all the time, and the dad, which is a story that I've lived in my life, ends up getting muscle injuries or other injuries just because they weren't able to handle what they did in the weight room.
So what are some of the more common injuries that you see in some of these weekend warriors that just aren't ready to be warriors just yet?
Well, it always depends upon the sport. Certain sports are amenable to certain injuries, whether you play a contact sport, a collision sport, or an overhead sport. So often in overhead sports, we see a lot of shoulder and elbow injuries. Golfers will see a lot of back injuries. Obviously depends upon, if it's a really good golfer, a scratch golfer, or it's somebody that might just go out and try to hit the clubs around and swings with their arms and has more upper extremity injuries. In soccer, we'll see some of those dads that go out and tear their ACL, or the moms that just go out there and tear their ACL, just playing occasionally and don't prepare themselves for playing like they might have done when they were younger.
Yeah. So when you do have an ACL injury, can you tell the guys out there what they're going to go through when they have one of those injuries?
Well, the first goal is to prevent the ACL injury. Anything you can do, prevent it. And that's, our body changes over time. And a lot of times what we talk about, the buzz term has been neuromuscular control. Really, it's that combination of the brain telling the body how you need to handle your body in space. And when you're going to cut down the field, you need to make sure you can do it while the muscles are having synchrony between the muscles. So if you don't do it that way, then you're going to have your knee cave in and you're going to potentially tear your ACL. And that's what happens a lot is, when we're younger, especially in young females, they're more prone to that type of injury. But also in our adults, we've seen it. A person hasn't played soccer for years and goes out one day and plays with their friends and then injures their ACL, just like that.
So how important is stretching?
Yeah.
Because I've heard these studies about it, that you can overstretch your body when you're working out, or you should maybe stretch afterwards. So how important is it, and what's the right balance?
Well, I think the goal is to have a prevention program of some kind, depending upon the sport you play. So really defining what are the exercises I need to do mainstream, the more you play sports, and then what do I need to do before I participate in that sport that day. So flexibility and stretching are important. The biggest term that's come out more recently is dynamic flexibility program, as opposed to just static stretching that people can really kind of usually are used to doing. You just kind of stretch your hamstring by leaning over and keeping your knee extended, and that's usually what people do. But really, you need to get your body attuned to be able to simulate what you're going to be doing in that sport. So that's very complex movements. And so for example, one of the things we use for lower extremity athletes, a lot of soccer players, is the FIFA 11 Plus prevention program, which is really targeting those neuromuscular control and flexibility exercises needed to participate in the sport.
So let's say we have a guy that starts playing soccer and doesn't know the FIFA plan.
Yeah.
So what do you mean by dynamic stretching or dynamic mobility? Like, how is that different from just me bending over and touching my toes?
Well, you'll see, if ever you've seen a pro sport and you see the people working out in the field, a lot of times they'll be doing exercises where they do combination lunges, combination stretches. They kind of do complex movements. You'll see them jumping up in the air and then landing softly and then coming down to kind of a lunge position. It's complex movement patterns that kind of really kind of tailor to that sport. Sometimes you'll have some gradual flexibility and stretching that will lead into sprinting. In our baseball pitchers, we often do long tossing in the beginning of the day. You just don't want to go out there and throw 90 miles per hour. You want to go and just have some gradual throws and get the arm warmed up before you are able to throw.
It's interesting you mentioned that. That's why when the relief pitcher is getting ready, he's actually throwing slowly. He's not just stretching his arms.
Absolutely.
And that's a form of dynamic work beforehand to kind of get going for that movement that they're going to be practicing?
Absolutely. It's amazing. The weekend warrior will want to just go out there and play.
Yeah.
And just, you want to just show up and let's have fun. And,
Yeah.
and the reality is our pro athletes are doing a workout program before, they're participating in the sport, and then they're doing a stretching flexibility workout program after.
Yeah.
Often our pitchers come down and everybody sees them get ice, but they come down and then do a workout program when they're in the locker room. And so that's what it takes. Plus they have physical therapists and athletic trainers that work with them every day.
Yeah.
And this is what nobody sees behind scenes. And the reality is that we just want to go out there, have fun and play. And I'm the perfect example of that. I've strained my quad. My daughter helped me break my toe because I wasn't necessarily using a lot of prevention techniques in terms of how I was playing, just like most of us dad and moms.
So you mentioned prevention. So in the survey we did through Orlando Health this year, we found that millennials work out more than the usual crowd.
Yep.
And also they're more likely to use supplements. So I remember whenever I go to the store, there's tons of people buying all these supplements. And there's one supplement you were talking about earlier that helps joints, but the data is not that great on it.
Yeah, that's glucosamine and chondroitin, and a lot of people love to use it. And what I always tell people is, if you're going to use it for joint health, you want to make sure you're not doing too many things at once. You want to really assess, add it to your program when you're not adding anything else, to really assess, do you see an effect? Often people will do 10 things at once, and you can never tell what actually has the positive effect on your body. So just because in the literature it doesn't necessarily show it has an effect doesn't mean some people might not see a benefit. But overall, we don't usually recommend it as something that's really going to make a huge difference, and people need to spend a lot of money on it. But go ahead.
So are there any supplements that you recommend?
Yeah, well, the biggest part of supplements is it's not what you're taking, what you don't want to take, you need to think about. And the reality is a lot of supplements aren't regulated. So you really need to look for the WADA guidelines and know what's accepted and what's not, because a lot of times there'll be things in there that you don't know about. And this is what happens a lot of pro athletes when you see them get busted for taking steroids. A lot of times they'll take a supplement, and maybe the supplement's been okay for a long period of time, and then all of a sudden one batch of the supplement will have something in it. So it's actually really true that some of these athletes might not know what they're taking. However, they're still responsible for what's in their body, which is why they still have to pay the consequences for what they do. But overall, supplements, it's important to take a multivitamin, be nutritionist, savvy in a nutrition standpoint of what you're doing, eat well, work out safely. But certainly, there's not a list of supplements to take to make you a better athlete per se. It's really a lot of hard work. If you really want to pay attention to what to do and what not to do, sit down with a nutritionist that has experience in this. We have a sports nutritionist that deals with all of our sports teams and really gives great advice on what to do and what not to do.
So in my field, when patients ask me what the best supplement is, I say water.
Water.
It's free, keeps you hydrated, good for your skin, good for everything, and helps the plumbing. I'm sure it's the same in Europe because dehydration is a big problem out there on the field in the hot weather.
Absolutely, 100% agree. I think water is one of the best things you can do in preparing to get out there and play. Nutrition and hydration are two important components. And then preparing your body in other ways that we talked about before.
So what's the craziest injury you've ever seen that's the most memorable?
Wow. I would tell you the craziest injury that I saw was I help take care of a professional soccer team. In the past, I've been involved in NFL and Major League Baseball a lot. And the most difficult injury for me to deal with was actually a heart event on a field. I'm an orthopedic surgeon by trade. I really take it seriously, the quality of the medical care we provide, so that emergency care services is important. But it's one of those moments we're not just dealing with the limb. We're not just dealing with a torn ACL, we're dealing with life. And so that was probably the most impactful on me. That number one, it really was that moment, are you prepared? And number two, the feeling after of critically evaluating how you can always do it better. And really that was kind of the moment that I realized that really the quality of the people that we have that I work with is phenomenal. And I'm blessed to be in this situation.
So how can a guy out there that's watching us today or following us be prepared for 10 years from now, 20 years from now, 30 years from now? So are there like 3 tips that you can give all the guys out there on how they can live a better life today that will hopefully help them, go longer in life?
Well, the first thing I try to tell all my patients is don't take me as an example. So the dad bod isn't always what it's meant to be. But in all seriousness, I think the biggest things are really be attuned to nutrition and really pay attention to your body. if you're going to get involved in anything, get involved in those things slowly and be safe about it. Everybody wants a quick win. Everybody wants to do things 100 miles per hour. And in our life today, it's so hard to pay attention to those small things and take the time to actually sit back and say, here's going to be my program and I'm going to do it in a slow way. Want to lose 100 pounds in 2 days. And if we can't, then we're not happy and we give up. And that's why all these fads and workout programs go away and people get injured in sports. One of the things I always tell our athletes is you can't play anything 110%. All you can give is 100. The difference between 100 and 110% is injury, because you do things that you're not usually going to do. So you do things harder than you do them. You do things heavier than you do them, and that's how injuries happen. So those are really the things I try to talk about our athletes, because part of this is trying to get an athlete back to play. Now, they might have an injury we have to operate on or not operate on, but also there's this mental and physical component to not only treating the injury, but also getting them psychologically and physically back to the field. And that's sometimes a very humbling moment, and every athlete's different.
Yeah, so slow and steady wins the race. So actually, our motto this year is adding years to his life, 1 mile at a time.
Absolutely.
So don't try to go with 100 miles per hour, just slow and steady, and you will definitely get to where you want to be.
Yep.
And so thank you so much, Dr.
No,
Osbahr,
absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Support of the Drive for Men's Health for years now.
Absolutely.
And we look forward to having you join us on the road, whether it's on social media or through this webcast. So thank you.
I would absolutely, and what you're doing for men's health in an area that nobody really pays attention is phenomenal. So I know from my standpoint, I'm very appreciative of having people like you and colleagues that we can work on this mission together of helping the people we take care of.
Yeah.
I'm Dr. DarylOsbahr, and it's time to drive for men's health.
Drive for men's health!